as I said at the beginning, I just wanted to clean it up so it's all looking fine. I'm sitting on my Dev branch of Pylot, so it's pretty much the same as all your guys' branches. If I ran like .setup, we'd see all the same stuff. I have a Mac, but I also have a virtual environment, so I just turned that virtual environment on. Py2 Pylot environment. So this is my Python 2 Pylot environment. I also have a Python 3 Pylot environment. So if I did work on, I also have that one, Python 3 Pylot environment. All right, pip list.
Is work on just part of the package?
Work on is part of the virtual environment manager package. And the cool thing about it is you can basically store all your virtual environments in one place, access them from anywhere, and so it kind of removes that feeling of always creating a new virtual environment. So instead of being like, oh, I'm not going to create a new virtual environment every project, which is kind of why I changed or added all these comments, because it's really annoying to just do .setup and have a new virtual environment created when you already made that virtual environment like 10 other times. Like, there's no reason to have 10 of the same virtual environments. And so the virtual environment package manager allows you to access those virtual environments from anywhere. The reason that we don't teach it in the platform is it's a little bit complicated to set up. It's not like horribly complicated, and as I put it on on Slack, but you have to change some pathing variables and set a bash profile, hidden file. So it's totally cool, but don't feel like you need to do it. Just recognize that you don't always have to create a new virtual environment. You can just go and access another one that's a Pylot type virtual environment and turn it on. So, all right. So mine's on. It's active. If I did pip list, you'd see a bunch of stuff. Yay. And those are all things that you'd get added from the system dependencies file. Awesome. All right. So on to Atom, eventually, maybe, when it loads sometime. Yeah. All right. Cool. All right, so close up our setup. I commented out all the comments already, but I do want to make sure that our system is still working even though I made all those changes. So just really quick, I'm going to turn on our Python manage py run server. Oh, no module named welcome. Yep. So let me just take a quick check what I did. So manage py line 14, it's not there. And then it goes into the wall system init, goes to line 25, and routes line 25. So it's probably in routes line 25. Let's take a look there. All right, so welcomes and welcome. So one of the things I did in this particular version of my Pylot program is I changed welcome to welcomes for my controller, and my models I singularized it, which is kind of the general pattern you want to be using. Is basically your controller should be plural, your models be singular. So I did that. All right. So, but I did not change my routing. So open up our routes, and forgot to delete all these comments. Yes, you put your routing in your routes file. You guys didn't know that already. All right, and this just needs to be welcomes. All right. I'm going to put a few spaces in here just so that this is a nice, cleaner looking piece of code that we can actually.
Quotes are how you make comments?
For multiple lines of comment, yeah. The other way to make comments is obviously doing the hashtag, right? Blah, blah, blah. All right, cool. So that should be up and running now. Cool. And if we went to localhost 5000, we should be good. Okay, so we have all of our queries all set. So we have a couple options as to what we want to do at this point. We can bake the HTML. We can build all of our model. We can build all of our controller. So let's just go ahead and build all of our views really quickly. So in our index.html, let's make a new view. So new file, and let's call this login.html. I'm not going to do anything fancy. There's ways to like make little partial views and whatnot, and we'll do that with the Ajax stuff potentially. But login.html. All right, in login, let's just say h1. Welcome to the wall. All right, let's just put this in a header tag. All right, in the main tag, let's have a couple forms. The first form is going to be the one that we use for registration. The other one is going to be for login. So form input times. So we need first name, last name, email, password, confirm password as 5 things, and a submit button. So 6 things. All right. So the action that we're going to use is going to be / register. Sounds like a good action to me. It's going to be a method of post. Oh, that's not what I want to do. All right. So text is fine for first name. Name equals first name. And we could do a placeholder, or we could do a label. I'm going to be super lazy and just do a placeholder. It won't look as nice as doing some other things, but
Just grayed out type.
Yeah. Just grayed out filled in.
just so people know what to type in the various places. And then for email, we can force it to be a type email, and some browsers will properly do front-end validation on this, and basically say if you can't submit this thing without this being a valid-looking email, all right, passwords types. The type password basically makes a hidden field that will not autofill, and it'll get cleared if you ever try to submit it, no matter what. You can always repopulate it if you want to, but by default it clears itself. And name equals password. Placeholder. And then this next one is also a type password. Pretty much the same as here. Except it's confirm password. And then the last one is type submit, and the value equals submit. Cool. There's one form. I'm just going to copy this form because we're going to use a lot of pieces of it, like 2 pieces of it. Pieces that we're going to use are password and email, and change this to login. All right. Cool. We can throw some basic styling on this thing. Let's just do that. That's not how you do styling. That's not also how you do styling. All right. And let's just do input, display, inline block. Now let's make them a full block rather than an inline block. Now that they're actually their own lines. All right. Cool. All right. So welcome controller. So the reason that I have this welcome folder is because I want to match it with the welcome controller. And we'll run login. So instead of running this index.html that we had been running, let's change this thing so that the index method runs our or login HTML.
So you're saying that views folder should match the controllers, but controller is plural. Is that should they not match?
It ends up not totally mattering. I would have named this thing welcomes in the whole place. I would call it something like, I don't know, users. Yeah, but so basically I'd want different pieces of HTML that are related to users in this folder, but some way to keep track of things. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at what this now looks like. It's going to be super pretty. So refresh the page. Ooh, so nice. It's actually not horrible, but it's...
Actually, I've seen
All right.
it's way better than mine. I spent an hour.
So,
What happens when you want pixel? Ooh, bite your tongue.
awesome. So while we're sitting in our welcomes controller, why don't we make the two routes that we're going to be catching here? So the first one is going to be def. Whoa, that's one tab too many. Def login. And it's going to take a parameter of self. And we can print request form. And then we can pass after that. So we're not going to do anything other than print request form and then not worry about the rest of it. And then same with register, self. Oh, that's not a register. Yeah, exactly. Cool. All right, so there's a couple of nice little methods. We don't have any way to hit these methods, so we need to make some routes for them.
There's no dying.
So,
Well, pass, I guess, is.
yeah, you
Is
can.
pass die, or is that? It's not the
It's
same
just
technically.
ignore.
Yeah, return.
Okay.
All right, so we need some routes for these things. So those different things are both post type routes, and so you can specify the verb as the first parameter, and then the path as the second parameter. So login, and then on this side it's welcomes, so it's which controller it is, and then login. So and then the same thing for register. Register. All right, so at this point, ideally, if we run this thing and we click on either of those buttons, we'll get something like with method doesn't return anything, but it'll at least print out what we put into the form, hopefully, and run the proper route. So let's give that a shot. Refresh this. All right, great. Mikey likes Cheerios. Cheerio at O's.com. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We don't care. All right, so function didn't return a response, which is fine. That's what we were expecting. And then the second thing they were expecting is that we would see the printout of the request form. So somewhere in here, we should see this immutable dictionary, and there it is. So Mikey, password, Cheerios, likes Cheerios. Cool. All right, so we have our data coming over, looking good. All right, sweet. Let's go back here, refresh that. All right, cool. All right, so I'm going to reorganize my page a little bit at this point, and we'll build out our login and registration. All right, so what I'm going to do in terms of rebuilding my page, I'm going to split this thing up into 4 quadrants. And the reason I do that is I like to be able to see my views, I like to be able to see my controllers, I like to see my models kind of all working together, and then I like to have my routes sitting somewhere. So split right. All right, so my routes would be sitting over there. All right, my welcome controller, or so is my model. I might split that down, have it down here, close it from up here, close my routes from up here, and then split this one down.
You don't have a grid option.
Nope.
In Atom. Okay.
Nope. All right.
Are you doing Sublime?
Yeah. You can,
Check once a line.
Yeah. but I can multi-split.
Yeah. What can you do?
I can multi-split.
You think you can?
Just have to press one button.
View layout grid 4 rows 3.
But can you
rows 2,
multi-split?
columns.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Can you do that?
Adam did it.
Right.
Wait, but how? I don't even know how that is like
Sorry.
actually helpful though. I can't even see.
Yeah, I know. I was just fooling around.
No, but I'm like, what's the point of that?
Alright.
Though? You did it to mine, and I was like, how is that even helpful?
So
We could go letter by letter.
Just watch you see how far.
And then I tried to split it up, and it doesn't even. No.
And it doesn't even know.
It doesn't even.
No.
It won't even show up.
all right. So why this is useful is if you have a complicated project, if you know all your views are kind of hanging out over here, it's easy to kind of just be like, okay, these are all my view things. I want to toggle through. Oh, I want to look at my login view. I want to look at my index view. Right. If I know all my models are hanging out down here, and again, this font is a little bit tough to see with such a big screen and such a large font because of the presentation. But I would know all my models are down here, so I'd be like, okay, so I want to look at my welcome model. Oh, I want to look at my user model. Oh, I want to look at my comments model. Oh, I want to look at my messages model.
So if you're actually looking for an error, if you want to just look at the whole project as a whole, you're seeing the pieces so they come all together for specific things.
Error generation, I tend to, if I see an error and I can figure out which file it is and I know it's in my model, I can then go to this quadrant.
Okay.
Yeah. And same with my controllers. So I'd be able to toggle through all my controllers up here. So, all right. So that's kind of my view of that. All right. So index, we're not worrying about the index. It's making our login page. Fantastic. After we log in, or try to log in, what do we want to try to do when we log in? Well, we want to go to our model, check validations, and then return a user or errors, right? That's basically what we want to do if we with our login method. So let's do that. All right. How we're going to do that is not too difficult. What we want to do, and this is the connection to the database. So we've loaded a model up here. Sorry, let me scroll up slowly. So this is the loading model comment. So self.loadModel welcome. That says go to our models, go to this file that matches that name. So this name, welcome, should match that welcome in quotes. Inside this model, we should have a class that also matches that name. All right, so we're going to get that thing. These guys are stored in a list. They're stored in a list called self.models. So if we wanted to access a specific, a dictionary. If we wanted to access a specific member of that dictionary by its name, we would just say self.models bracket welcome. So we want to go to, in our login method, to go to the model. Going to the model looks like this. Self.models bracket welcome. So we want to go to that specific model. So these are all the models. It's a dictionary. And then to access a key of a dictionary, that's how to access the key. And then that key might have an object associated with it that has different methods, like login. And we want to pass that login request.form. So we're passing everything from our request form into that login.
Oh, yeah. That's so much easier.
Oh, you did? Really?
Yeah, I broke it down into a thing, but this way it keeps it as an immutable object going directly over to your model.
Yep.
So you're going to have a method in your model page called login?
Yep. So now we can cruise down to our model page and be like, okay, so we don't have any methods in here yet, so we need to put one in. Def login, and it takes a parameter, self, and it takes a second parameter, which is whatever we're going to pass in, and we're just going to call this rec. We can call it data, but it's the request.form. So let's just call it rec. All right, so if we wanted to, we'd say print 50 stars, star times 50. and then print rec, and then print some more stars. Just to show that this thing is indeed that same immutable dictionary. All right, so we cruise there, we print it. Let's get rid of this print here. So we're now going over to our model, hopefully, and then printing 50 stars, printing rec, and returning null. And you're still going to get the same ugly error, but at least we'll see it. So refresh the page, hit submit. All right, there's the view function did not return a response, so same thing that we had before, which we were expecting, so not a big deal. And then if we look in our terminal, we should see 50 stars, and there's the immutable dictionary that got passed over as rec. Right, so that's the request.form that then
login.
of login. Yep.
The dictionary is always inside of a list.
Immutable dictionary objects look kind of listy.
Okay.
It's like a tuple of a list. It's kind of bizarre. With tuples inside of it that have a 0 and a 1 value. Yeah. So tuples, again, are immutable, right?
So to get those out,
It's still the same.
calling that
Password
your
and email.
information, password,
Yep.
whatever the okay.
So your question, let me just clarify that. So Jonathan's question was, how do we get that out? And to get an individual piece of it out, it's still the same thing. Request, quote, password.
Okay, so you're not trying to. You don't have to put 0 or
Nope.
anything because it's a.
Yeah, it's still actually a dictionary.
Okay.
It just looks funny when you get printed.
Okay.
All right, so let's just look at that just to make sure. So right now we should have a blank. Well, let's just put in a password of 123. Okay. All right, and then there's the 123 there. Cool. So it's still accessed exactly like a normal dictionary would be accessed,
Okay. Cool.
except you just can't change it. Hence immutable. All right. Yeah. Cool. All right, so there's part of login. At least we got data over to our login. Now let's actually log somebody in. All right. So we want to go to our database at this point and say temp user equals select star from users where email, remember that query that we did before, equals quote email. Or colon. All right. Sorry, I totally screwed that up. I apologize. Let's call this thing query. Let's say values. And values are going to be, even though we're going to only have one, I'm just calling it plural. It's going to be a dictionary with the first, with keys that match whatever's in these colons. So email, and then colon, rec, bracket, quote, email. And then temp user is going to be the result of this query. Temp user equals self.db query underscore db. So it looks very similar to what we did in Flask. Now all we just are adding, instead of before we had like mydb where self.db is, right? Just self.db replaces mydb, and it's still query underscore db, and you still do the execution of query, comma, values. So if the email matches, then we're going to end up with a temp user that actually works. All right. Now we can do something like try temp user bracket 0. So if somebody came back, so if there's anybody in this temp user, then we could potentially log somebody in. If there isn't anybody in there, then we could do something else. Right? We could return false or whatever.
try and accept.
It's just an if else statement, similar to an if else statement. So basically, we're saying, does the temp user 0 exist? If the temp user 0 does exist, then we want to do some things. So the things that we want to do, we basically want to check to see if the passwords match. All right, and this is where maybe somebody can look this up for me if somebody still has their computer around. I can't remember if the models in pylot already have bcrypt exposed.
Yes, they do.
Okay. And how do we access bcrypt? Is it self.bcrypt?
It is self-done.
And lowercase bcrypt?
Yep.
I'm going to use my other bcrypt. What's that? So I have this quick little bcrypt snippet. We don't need from Flask extension bcrypt because we know what that is. We don't need this bcrypt equals bcrypt app because that's already pre-generated, as Jonathan said. So to hash a password, that's to create a hashed password. We don't need that one. But we want to check to see whether or not we have a proper password. So you said self.bcrypt?
Mm-hmm.
So self.bcrypt, check password hash. So we're basically going to check the password hash. I'm going to just, whoa, sorry about that, guys. Right here. And since we have a temp user 0, that means they have at least a password field as well. It may be empty, but at least we can compare versus it. So the hash password is going to be temp user 0 bracket quote password. And the password attempt is going to be rec password. Rec quote password.
Sorry. All I can think is you better check yourself before you wreck yourself.
All right. And what we're going to say is we're going to test this as a Boolean. So if this is true, then we can log in. Otherwise, we want to return false. All right.
By the way, did you reset your timer when you did this?
Yes, I did. Yeah. I'm not sure if I have any volume, but so I should probably turn on my volume. We have 1 minute remaining. Yeah, yes. All right. Cool. So that's basically all we're going to do. So if those are true, then we're going to return. And we're not going to return the entire user. We're just going to return a couple pieces of the user. Temp user 0, because we don't want to return the whole thing. We just want to pass in their ID and their temp user. What's that?
First name, last name.
Yep, and we don't even have it as first name, last name anymore because our query.
Okay, right.
So
We're going to change our query a little bit because we're going to use the concat strategy. We'll just have it name. Sound good?
Yeah.
So that'll give us first name, last name.
So you're returning it back as an immutable object.
Yes, it's going to be accessed by 0 as the ID and 1 as the name.
Is there a reason why you're always passing these back and forth as immutable objects rather than?
Could have been a list. Tuples are kind of nice because you can do other cool tricks with them, like swap things and depack them in different ways. So it's generally nice to pass tuples around. Yeah, there's easy to unpack and you can't screw them up. So once they're sent, because usually when you're returning something, you want to be sending something that you don't want to mess with. So you want to set variables to that returned object, but you don't want to mess with it itself. All right. And there's the timer. Let me stop that. Pause this. And I'm going to save this one as login. Let me just finish this real quick and have the else statement in here. Else return false. Cool. So now we have 2 return falses that we can kind of verify. Otherwise, if it's not returned false, if it returns something other than false, we can do something else with it. Awesome. All right, so let's pause this guy. Not pause, turn it off.